Assalamu alaikum students, this is your instructor Muhammad Umar Khatak for the course Human Resource Management. This is our 11th lecture and we'll be starting chapter number 5, Human Resource Planning and Alignment. And this is in the section of acquiring human resources. The human resource planning process. All effective human resource planning shares certain criteria features. It is generally agreed that HR planning involves 4 distinct phases or stages. Number 1, situation analysis or environmental scanning. Number 2, forecasting demand for human development. Number 3, analysis of the supply of human resources. And number 4, development of plans for action. Situation analysis and environmental scanning. The first stage of human resource planning is the point at which human resource management and strategic planning initially interact. The strategic plan must adapt to environmental circumstances, and HRM is one of the primary mechanisms that an organization could use during the adaptation process. Rapid technological change in environment can force an organization to quickly identify and hire employees with new skills that previously weren't needed by the organization. Without effective human resource plan to support the recruitment and selection function in the organization, it would be impossible to move fast enough to stay competitive. The problem associated with changing environments are greater today than ever before because success now depends on an ability to be a global scanner. Global scanning is in fact considered one of the essential strategic skills for modern management. This conclusion was supported in a study that asked senior decision makers from Compaq, AT&T, Microsoft, and IBM which approaches they find most valuable when scanning their environment. The top approaches were sensing changes early, interpreting changes in a meaningful way, communicating the implications of changes, interacting intensively with customers, and maintaining an outward-looking view. Forecasting demand for employees. The next phase of effective human resource planning process is estimating not only how many but also what kinds of employees will be needed. Forecasting yields advanced estimates or the calculations of the organization's staffing requirements. Although many quantitative tools can help with forecasting, it involves a great deal of human judgment. Many successful HR planners rely heavily on their gut instincts about future conditions. It should be obvious that the demand for employees is closely tied to the strategic direction that the organization has chosen. Is the organization in a growth mode, or is the organization engaged in re-engineering that will shrink the workforce in the coming years? Trying to estimate how many and what kind of workers will be required in the future is clearly an incredibly difficult task, especially for organizations that confront rapidly changing environment such as those found in the computer industry. A number of techniques available to the organization help reduce this kind of uncertainty. 4 of these techniques will be described in the upcoming slides. These are expert estimates, trend projections, statistical modeling, and unit demand forecasting. Forecasting demand for employees with techniques. The expert estimate. The least mathematically sophisticated approach to employment forecasting is for an expert or group of experts to provide the organization with demand estimates based on experience, guesses, intuition, and subjective analysis of the labor force indicators. Concerns over a single individual's ability to provide accurate estimates of such complex issues led to the development of the Delphi technique. Delphi technique elicits expert estimates from a number of individuals in an iterative manner. Estimates are revised by each individual based on knowledge of the other individual's estimate. Another group based judgment forecasting method is called Nominal Group Technique (NGT). Individual generation of estimate is followed by group brainstorming sessions in the hope of generating one group decision that is preferred over any of the individual decisions. NGT, Nominal Group Technique, can be an effective tool for environment and problems more complex than an individual can master. It can also offset domination by a single person in decision-making process. The trend projection. The second top-down technique develops a forecast based on a past relationship between a factor related to employment and employment itself. For example, in many businesses, sales levels are related to employment needs. The planner can develop a table or graph showing past relationship between sales. Modeling and multiple predictive technique. The third top-down approach to prediction of employment demand uses the most sophisticated forecasting and modeling techniques. Trend projections relate a single factor, such as sales, to employment. The more advanced approach relate multiple factors to employment, such as sales, gross national product, and discretionary income. Or they mathematically model the organization and use simulations with methods such as Markov models and analytical formulation such as regression analysis. The use of Markov chain analysis involves developing a matrix to show the probability of an employee's moving from one position to another or leaving the organization. Markov analysis begins with an analysis of staffing levels from one period to another. Suppose the professional nursing employees have shifted from hospitals 1, 2, and 3 in the Houston Medical Center complex. That is, they quit working in one hospital and went to work for another in the medical center. An HR specialist in Hospital 1 is interested in analyzing the human resources shifts that are occurring between her hospitals and Hospital 2 and 3. The movement of nurses across the three local hospitals. The HR specialist could calculate transition probabilities for all three hospitals. That is, the probability that a hospital will retain its nurses can be calculated. Regression analysis is a mathematical procedure that predicts the dependent variable on the basis of knowledge of factors known as independent variables. When only one dependent and one independent variable are studied, the process is known as simple linear regression. When there is more than one independent variable being considered, the technique is referred to as multiple regression. Most uses of multiple regression emphasize prediction from two or more independent variables. As computer processing speed and capacity have increased, the number of variables used to predict the relevant outcome is virtually limitless. Thus, the HR planning specialist can quickly and easily determine the relationship between a large number of predictors and the dependent variable of interest using any of the number of commercially available statistical packages such as SPSS or SAS. Unit demand forecasting. The unit, which can be an entire department, a project team, or some other group of employees, forecast is a bottom up approach to forecasting demand. Headquarters sum these unit forecasts and the result becomes the employment forecast. The unit manager analyzes the person by person, job by job needs in the present as well as the future. By analyzing present and future requirements of the job and the skills of the incumbents, this method focuses on the quality of workers. In large organization, an HR executive at headquarters who is responsible for the employment demand forecast will improve the estimates by checking with the managers in the field. If the units forecast their own needs, the HR executive would sum their estimates to arrive at the forecast. What happens if both bottom-up and top-down approaches are used and the forecasts conflict? In all probability, the manager reconciles the two totals by averaging them or examining more closely the major variances between the two. The Delphi technique could be used to do this. NGT could also be used in resolving any discrepancies between different experts' opinions. Thus, one or several of the previously mentioned forecast techniques can be used to gather data in order to produce a single employment forecast. It should be apparent that human resource planning requires the cooperation of many people in the organization. A strategic plan must be communicated to operational managers and HR professionals who must in turn provide high levels of management with data about their human resource needs. The planners are major sources of data and information for development of strategy. Thus, the human resource planning function plays a critical role in making sure that strategy implementation is effective throughout the organization. That would be the end of the discussion. Thank you.